Hello and welcome to this episode of the Lily Pod. The Lily Pod is Catapult Greater Pittsburgh's podcast where we discuss all things community, politics, and people. And I am so excited to have with us today one of our extraordinary partners in this work. And listen, you cannot do this work well without great partners. So finding amazing partners, collaborating with amazing partners is really Catapult's success story. Partnering with people who have the same heart, who are mission aligned, and who want to see our communities thriving. And today I have one of those people who has been doing this work for an incredibly long time, who has been investing her heart and soul into our communities in so many different ways. Charlise Smith, founder of WAVE. We're going to talk today about what WAVE does, who they are, why they are, and what they have on the horizon. Are doing incredible work. Charlise, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh my God, it's a pleasure. So we talk all the time.
Yes, we do.
We talk all the time. We've been in the lab, y'all, trying to, you just wouldn't even have a clue how much work it takes to get out here and support families in the city of Pittsburgh. And Charlise has been doing this work with such grace and such faith. And literally has been sometimes going in her own pockets to make sure that this work is happening. And that's one of the things that I really admire about her. So welcome to the Lily Pod.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking time, because I know how busy you are. I know how crazy your days get. So I appreciate you.
Anytime. Anything with you and Catapult. We love y'all. You are amazing partners. We appreciate all the support that your organization does. So anything you ask of me, you know I'm going to show up.
And listen here, y'all. Now, let me say, I think that we are one of the best examples of what happens when you collaborate instead of competing. Yes. I'm going to have her back to talk about that in more depth at some point. But today, I really want to focus on highlighting her and her incredible organization. We want to make sure that people are aware of the work that they are doing. She has built a solid team of people who can help her vision come true and the vision. So Char, what is your vision? Tell us about WAVE and what is your vision for the people that you serve?
Absolutely. So our organization is WAVE, Lisa's agency for vision and empowerment. Lisa was my mother. Mm-hmm. She was murdered in front of me at the age of 3. And I felt in my heart I needed to do something, one, to keep her name alive, and 2, to help me heal what I didn't have. You know, I definitely believe in pouring into spaces that you don't have in order to somewhat help fulfill the hole within. And so my expertise is in real estate, property management. But what I've learned about myself over the years is I like participating on the people side. And so although we are a PHFA and HUD housing counseling agency, most people, when they think of housing counseling, they think of home ownership. And we decided to fill this space in the rental counseling space.
A big gap.
Which is a huge gap. Yes. And our goal is to transform the mindsets of the families that we serve who live in low to moderate income communities. That's the most basis of the work that we do. And it's very challenging. It's very challenging when it comes to changing the mindset of the people who hold the dollars. The families want the support, but it is so hard to change the mindset of the federal government, of a lot of the HUD regulations. And that, I believe, is what I am called to do. Even though I did not start off in the space of rental counseling, we started off in home ownership, and we still do that. However, I just believe that the basis of who we are is focusing on rental counseling. And rental counseling is making sure that families are mentally, emotionally empowered to literally, one, live in their unit prior to lease up. Two, have a safe space to come when they become delinquent. And three, allowing them to have the tools in order for them to sustain their housing. And a lot of times as well, when we work with families, everybody who is in low to moderate income communities doesn't necessarily want to be a homeowner.
That's right.
We believe that we need to assess these families where they are. And we believe that empowerment could be that you move into a tax credit property. Right? A tax credit property is when you no longer pay 30% of your income, but you pay a reasonable medium income, but your rent does no longer fluctuate. But we believe in guiding you to that point instead of when you do decide to get a job and they increase your rent for whatever that amount may be, and now you're ready to fall off the cliff because you're not ready for the shift in your financial income.
Absolutely. Oh, yes. That worked. Now, see, that you just said a mouthful. But the work is so incredibly important. And this is one of the reasons I love talking to people who are thinking about this community work in a very different way. Rental counseling is so important.
Yes.
Rental counseling is important because why?
One, I could talk about myself first before I talk about some of the clients. When you are a young single mom and it's time for you to transition into the world by yourself, whether you have support or don't have support, it's very scary. And also my experience have shown me on the property management side is because the rules and regulations are so strenuous on the property manager, full transparency, 80% of property managers is just looking for you to sign the lease so that you could get into your rental place, because the position itself is very toxic. It's not a position where you're just leasing the client. It's a whole lot of other stuff that come with that family. And then you got deadlines to make depending on what kind of funding sources are on these properties. So when we talk about rental counseling, we have to make sure that these families understand what they're walking into. And the way that we do that is, one, we revisit their lease. Two, we allow them to understand their rights as a tenant. But three, we also allow them to understand that their level of accountability for what they are supposed to do as a tenant. So it's twofold.
Yes.
It's not always the man. It's not always the owner.
No.
And it's not always the resident. But what we have found is 80% of the families that we were conducting assessments on did not read their lease. They were just going over the bare minimum. And so when their back was against the wall, when they received them 10-day notices, they were in shock, right? As far as we work with a community developer, Tina
Daniels, yes.
And she partnered with Pittsburgh Scholar House, and we had the opportunity to do the pre-leasing for 4 families that was in the process of leasing up her development, Bedford Dwellings. What was so shocking was that 50% of those individuals were afraid, right? They, one, come with baggage. They might have the education piece, but they were very honest saying, this is my first time ever living by
alone
myself
and being
alone
responsible
with their children.
Yeah.
And it was so deep. The one woman said, well, if I don't get accepted to this apartment, can we still participate in your program? Because she knew within herself that she needed that additional support in order for her to be successful.
And that, and everything you're talking about is, connected to the thing that I have been yelling and screaming about for the last 20 years. The psychology of poverty.
Yes.
There is a psychology to poverty that must be addressed. If we are talking about moving people who have been exposed to long-term generational poverty.
Absolutely.
There is something that happens to the brain. There is something that happens to the heart and the soul when people are not getting their most basic needs met.
Absolutely.
And to not address that is a mistake. It's a mistake, and it actually is setting people up for failure.
It definitely is.
Right? And so then you talk to developers and landlords and people that own properties who also don't understand the psychology of poverty. And quite honestly, it's not necessarily their responsibility to do so unless, here's where I push back. If you are choosing to get involved in the low-income housing space.
Yes.
If you're choosing to get involved in the low-income housing space, you know that your tenants, the majority of your tenants, will be suffering from some type of poverty trauma. Then you have a responsibility to understand the psychology of poverty, because you have to put people in place. If it's not going to be you, as the building owner or the developer, if it's not going to be you, there's got to be somebody who is a conduit between you and that tenant who can understand the needs and the challenges that might come up when you lease to people who have been exposed to poverty trauma.
Absolutely.
So what you're doing, the work that you're doing, I see it as not just a benefit. It's a very clear benefit to tenants and people who are moving into these properties. But from my perspective, it's an even bigger benefit to landlords, developers, and housing folks who are in this space and who have chosen to be in this space. And if they want the best results for them and their building, and they want the best results for these tenants, working with someone like you and Wave, who are doing this very intentional work of securing people in these units who can be successful, makes all the sense in the world from a business perspective and a social perspective.
And it's so interesting that we're having this discussion. And again, thank you again. One of the challenges when it comes to investors and owners, we have to change the use of the federal money from the contract rents, right? So, and what I mean by that is families who live in units who are 18 and older, who reside in multifamily HUD properties, HUD will not allow the owner to use some of those resources for residential services, except you are a senior, 62 and older, and they will allow you to create a nest egg called residual receipts. And residual receipts is a specific amount of dollars that you agree to put into an account to hire a social service organization, whereas multifamily projects will not allow the investors to use these resources for. And that's what I've been trying to fight about in reference to this. And I wonder, I was like, God, why would you put me in property management and do all this brokerage stuff and have me fail forward quickly in that? But now it's all starting to make sense, because now that I'm on the people side, I understand the business side of how the dollars are spent, how the dollars are allocated, how the investors are using the resources. I have an example. I'm not going to use any names. There was an investor, and it's public, but I'm not going to publicly say this. There was an investor. They had 144 units in our local community. They were able to get 30%, 70% of the adjusted rents, right? At that time, some of the rents were going for $1,500. That was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
Okay. What they would do is, if that family was only paying the minimum rent, which was $25, they didn't bother them. So the family could not pay $25 for a very long time. But then when the families wanted to submit a work order, then that's when these individuals would say, well, you're delinquent in your rent, and not fix things.
Like it's their building.
Well, it got deeper.
What?
So depending on the mortgages on some of these multi-unit properties, the investor can draw down money quarterly. So it benefited them.
So they were sucking the resources out of the buildings and not making the properties more habitable. They were just sucking out all the money. Oh, that's pretty gross.
Quarter, they could draw down that money and do something else with it and not put it back into the building. So when we talk about the deplorable conditions of a lot of the properties in our communities, these are some of the battles that you deal with. So now not only are we dealing with residents who are mentally going through stuff, but their environment is toxic, right? And their housekeeping is toxic. And these are a lot of the challenges that I believe that we need to have a serious conversation about, and not just with a nonprofit wave, but we need some investors at the table. We need the federal government at the table. Why are we still using the same 4350, which is a HUD occupancy standard compliance model from the beginning of time?
Now, see, that you just hit on something that's been frustrating me for probably the last 20, no, I'm joking, but really over the last few weeks. I'm calling this my accountability tour.
Okay.
Because there's systems and organizations and institutions that must be held accountable.
Absolutely.
That must be held accountable in order for us to do what we're mandated to do.
Absolutely.
And, I just had a conversation with one of our program officers who was concerned, was the word that he used, that we had so many programs. And I said, I don't want to do all these programs.
Who else is going to do it?
I would love to put my feet up and rest and just ride the wave. But we can't, because the people who are supposed to be doing this work, the institutions, the HUDs, the federal, state, local government entities that are being funded to do this work and to be thinking creatively and innovatively about how to get us out of the mess that we're in this housing industry, quite honestly, could be doing more.
Absolutely.
And because it takes so long to change policy and to change systems and to start doing things differently, people just continue to work within these old structures and these old systems that do not work for the 2024 housing issues that we are facing.
You couldn't have said it any better.
And until we can get folks and we can just hold them to the fire and say, listen, I know it's going to be hard to strip everything down and start from scratch. But if we really want to move the needle on poverty, and if we really want to get people stabilized enough so that they can start thinking about what comes next for them economically, what are we doing?
Exactly. And it's so interesting. I get a lot of pushback. I get a lot of pushback. You do. But I don't care. It's okay.
That's right.
It's challenging from a funding perspective because when you are coming to the table with ideas that can literally strip the resources of other individuals that may be using our people to keep their doors open, nobody want to give you no money. And, one of the things that we had implemented, one of the programs was our READY program. And that stands for Recognizing Everything Ain't Done Yet.
Oh,
and
come on, ready? Now, wait
Yes.
a minute, because y'all know how Catapult feels about a good acronym.
I learned from the best.
I love that. What is it? Ready. What is it again?
Yes. Recognizing Everything Ain't Done Yet.
Ooh, that's so good.
Yes.
Ooh, that's
And,
good.
God put that on my heart because we recognized we were getting so many families coming to our front door in the rental space. And then when we were doing virtual inspections, they were living in deplorable conditions. Some of it was their fault. Some of it was the owner's fault. But at the end of the day, we realized that they were struggling. We realized they had horrible eating habits. We realized that they had low self-esteem, low self-worth. Like this stuff, I'm not going to say I forgot about it, but I think sometimes when it pops back up in front of you, it takes you back to when you were a young lady, right?
That's what makes us so right
Yes.
for this moment, because both you and I, we've had these conversations. You and I have experienced many of the challenges that the folks we work with are experiencing right now,
Yes.
which means we get triggered daily. Every day, there's a situation that comes up that we can relate to.
Absolutely.
And what we know is that it's easy to scapegoat poor people. It's easy to scapegoat and just say, well, this is, they just, whatever they get, that's what they deserve.
Yes.
And as a result, we're not holding people accountable for creating and doing the work and creating livable situations for people and their children.
Absolutely.
And so the longer people experience substandard housing, the longer people are experiencing navigating rodent infestations and bug infestations and mold in their cupboards and mushrooms growing out of their kitchen cupboards, the more people have to experience that, the longer it is taking them to heal.
Absolutely.
You cannot focus on what comes next and the future of your family and reading to your kids at night and planning for a financial future when you are living in an environment that is not suitable for that type
Those
of thinking.
deplorable conditions.
Right.
Absolutely.
And a lot of that comes out of mental health. I've been there, y'all. I've been there where everything was so overwhelming that even thinking about doing a load of laundry was too much.
Absolutely.
Right? Where even thinking about doing a sink full of dishes was too much. And then eventually it just outgrows you and you become even more overwhelmed because life is already overwhelming you.
Absolutely.
And that is why your counseling is so important, because we can be working with people to help them not just address the issues around the housing, but to connect them to resources so that they can finally start to mentally, emotionally, and psychologically heal so that they can see that there is something else better waiting for them.
Absolutely. And we are so pro activists for residents, but not from the standpoint of enabling the family.
Because accountability is a big deal.
Is everything. And I definitely appreciated ERAP, the rental assistance program.
That emergency rental assistance program during the COVID.
I just didn't like the process. I believed, and my numbers showed me that we were more successful with building the relationship with the landlord, agreeing to paying their back rent, but it would not come at the beginning of the month. It would not come out one lump sum, but we're going to send it to you over a period of time. But that client of ours had a checklist of things
that they had
to do before we sent the check.
Yeah.
And our numbers were very, very good. But I'm saying that to say nobody wanted to hear it that way.
This is where, this is where trying to do good becomes bad. Because when you start taking away accountability, human nature combined with trauma leads to avoidance.
And these people were honest.
Yeah, like, why am I paying? I finally am catching a break. I finally can breathe. If I can get away without paying this rent,
Absolutely.
I'm not going to pay it.
And I do believe that everybody needs a break, but there should be a strategy in giving a person a break.
Yes.
If you're going to pay my rent for a year, okay.
Then what do I need to do?
What do I need to do? So at the end of this term of resources,
I'm better off than I was. Yes.
I'm on my feet. I'm teaching my child some different skill sets in order to survive.
Yeah.
And that's just the piece where I get a lot of pushback because I just believe in cause and effect. I just believe in that. But no, I know what free stuff gets you.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you give me something free, I'm going to ride it out.
For real.
You make me hold accountable, it gives me that incentive to learn and do. And during that journey, I'm starting to recognize, oh, I'm picking up some new habits now. Oh, wait a minute, I don't want to do it like this. And see, we have a group of individuals that we work with on a monthly basis, this community of individuals who do life skill classes, and we have a health coach. But what's so beautiful about this is that they're together. So now you got all these people jumping on our program once a month, or sometimes they do it in 6-week cohorts. I don't run the program, so
good.
But I don't.
Look, good. Get you out the weeds.
Yes.
Let's get on.
But they support each other.
Yes.
You see what I'm
saying? The
saying?
cohorts are very powerful.
Yes, they're
Girl,
you know you ain't supposed to be getting your nails done. What was your they got people that supporting them in spaces where they didn't have it before, but yet they got a case manager on these classes with them saying it's okay, your self-esteem is still okay because you didn't get your nails done, girl. As a matter of fact, your self-esteem is better because you paid your rent.
That's right.
Instead of using your rent for things that is not going to benefit you. That's what I like about what we do. That's the most joy I get out of it because I'm seeing that they have support systems for each other.
And you can say that thing that typical property managers can't say.
Yes.
Right? That's what the beauty of having experience. You can say that thing because you know how to say it in a loving, nurturing way.
Yes.
That also exudes accountability.
Absolutely.
And there's a way to hold people accountable.
Yes.
Cruelty is not one of them.
No.
Cruelty is not one. Degrading people is not one. Judging people is not one.
Absolutely.
But showing people the results of their decisions and laying it out for them and be like, look, at the end of the day, this is your choice. This is your decision. But when you're making decisions, you have to know what's leading them.
Yes.
And what we've learned from doing the psychology of poverty trainings is that most people don't even know that they're experiencing trauma.
No.
They just think this is just the way it is. This is the way the cards were drawn. This is the luck of the draw for me. And it's bad, and I just got to figure out how to do the best I can in what God has given me. And what we're saying is that is not true. Correct. The decisions that you're making are rooted in trauma. And once you understand that, you can start making decisions differently.
Absolutely.
But it's about educating people so that they don't feel the guilt and the shame that comes with making these decisions and then not even knowing, why did I do that?
Yes.
Why did I buy those shoes instead of paying this electric bill? Why did I do that? People don't know. It is not you that's making your decisions. Your trauma is making your decisions, and that is what we have to address.
Absolutely, Tammy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. You said it
Sure.
well.
I can't tell you. First of all, I love you.
I love you,
I
too.
love you. I do. I love you as a human being.
Yes.
But I admire you. Because I know how much you have overcome. I know how much you are still overcoming. And I know how much of yourself you have put into building this organization.
Yes.
So I will support you to the end of time.
I know you will.
I will support you in any way that I can. But tell people who are listening how they can support you as well.
Yes. So you can give. We have a donation button on our website. which is www.waveoflife.org. Our office is moving.
Yay, I'm so
thank you,
excited
Lord. We
for
got
that.
somewhere to do some stuff.
Yes.
We will be moving to 7171 Churchland, Pittsburgh, PA, 15206. We finally have space where we will be in a position to provide additional services. So more information will come with that. Our phone number is 412-573-9217. And that's how you can get in touch with us.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day
Thank you.
to sit with us. And if you want to learn more about WAVE, please check out the website in the comments. And Charlise is on social media as waveoflife.org. And Char, keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Keep up the great work.
Thank you for having me.
Our folks need what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Lily Pod, and we will see you next time.